Hey friends, so really quick, as of the day that this video is launching, it's currently Friday, August 16th, 2024, and that means that tomorrow is August 17th, which is my 30th birthday. What I would love more than anything is just a quick happy birthday comment from you. That would absolutely mean the world to me. If you want to give me some more extra presents, you can drop a like and watch another one of my videos after this one to show some extra support, but if not, that's totally alright, and the happy birthday comment would more than enough make my day. And of course, thank you so much for watching this video and for being a part of my YouTube journey. I genuinely appreciate you being here, and I hope you're having a great day. Looking back at Hey Arnold as a show, it's interesting to learn how universally hated that Miss Slovak was. And honestly, I never really realized it as a kid. As someone who had the pleasure of watching this show when I was Arnold's age, I never really paid too much attention to Miss Slovak or the way that she treated the kids. But man, in hindsight, as an adult, I can think of quite a few examples where her teaching style and interactions with the students can certainly be called into question. Ultimately, Miss Slovak would end up being written out of the show seemingly out of nowhere and replaced with Mr. Simmons, who was usually emphasized as almost overly positive, but also mindful and sensitive to his own feelings and the feelings of others, especially the students in his class. But what exactly was it that made Miss Slovak so hated, and what really led to her getting written out of the show? Today, on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're going to answer those questions and a few more. First of all though, we need to take the time to lay a bit of context. Miss Slovak is the 4th grade teacher at PS 118. Throughout the first season of the show, we would see her playing the role of Arnold's teacher. As a teacher though, she never really attempted to go the extra mile or really attempt to connect with any of the kids. Personally, some of the greatest teachers that I ever had in my childhood were the ones who took the time to connect with me on something that sparks joy for me and of course embrace my pursuit of that thing as well. Meanwhile, Miss Slovak takes a more straight-to-the-point approach that can come across rather abrasive at times. More often than not, her approach to teaching is strictly on the rails. We learn the curriculum that we're supposed to, nothing more, nothing less, nothing different, and we're definitely not going to think outside of the box along the way. In a sense, it kind of comes across like she has heavy interest in training these kids to be the worker ants that they're supposed to be, and not really aspire for anything more than that. Furthermore, she also has a tendency to treat students not all too fairly. We see an excellent example of this in the beginning of the episode Spelling Bee, where both Helga and Arnold equally prove themselves to be the best spellers in the whole school.
A citywide spelling bee is on Saturday, and there's a $500 prize. So good luck to you two. And Helga, don't spend all that money in one place.
I won't, Miss Slovak. I'll win, just like I'm supposed to.
Good girl.
Now, it's revealed in this episode that Helga is expected to win by basically everyone because her older sister Olga had won the citywide spelling bee in her youth many times. However, a few episodes later, it would also be revealed that Olga was also a student of Miss Slovak, and essentially the one kid that Miss Slovak had deemed her star pupil throughout her entire teaching career. Of course, this would definitely explain her favorable bias towards Helga over Arnold, but with that being said, for her to blatantly display that in front of not only Arnold himself, but also the entire class, is just gross. I mean, the look on Arnold's face when Miss Slovak told Helga not to spend all of the prize money in one place really just said it all about how that made him feel. Statements like that one right there are how you completely destroy a kid's confidence, and as a teacher, her job is basically quite the opposite. I also really don't appreciate her reaction to Helga saying that she's going to win. She just says, good girl, like her winning is an expectation. There's no, I believe in you, or even I believe in both of you. There's no encouragement, it's just good girl like she's a dog doing a trick for her owner. This right here really encompasses a lot of what Miss Slovak's teaching style and interactions with the kids are like, but what comes next would provide even further groundbreaking context as to just how horrible she can be. In that same exact episode, Spelling Bee, we hear Miss Slovak giving the kids an important announcement about very dangerous asbestos testing that's going on that weekend at the school.
So when you come to class on Monday, it's very, very important that you all
First of all, the fact that she would neglect giving the kids very important safety instructions for when they get to class on Monday is just despicable and is a true testament to really how much she cares about the general safety of her students. That right there really casts a massive shadow over her ethics as we perceive them as viewers. But second of all though, her running out of class the second the bell rings is a clear-cut indicator that Miss Slovak is just completely burned out. Like, she's counting the seconds to get out of there, and as a matter of fact, she does before any of the students are even up out of their seats. This also paints a very clear picture for us of just how much she really cares about these kids and her job as a teacher molding the minds of future generations. By all means, don't get me wrong, she doesn't have to stick around for hours on end after class, but like, at least wait for your students to leave before you yourself rush out of there. By straight up sprinting out of the classroom as fast as she can the second that she's allowed to, she's showing the students that she doesn't want to be there, which, as a kid who's supposed to be looking to this person for guidance, can make you question if they don't want to be there in the first place. Does this person really have my best interest at heart at all? One big thing we need to point out though is the reason why that Miss Slovak is like this. Odds are it's due to burnout. Like we covered already, she's the 4th grade teacher currently to Helga. Now, before that, she was the 4th grade teacher to Helga's older sister, Olga. Granted, Olga's age is never specifically stated, however, we're given some context in the episode Helga on the Couch that would lead us to believe that Olga is roughly right about 12 years older than her little sister. So, with that being said, we know that Miss Slovak has been teaching for, at minimum, a little more than a decade. However, based on past information, we can confirm that she's been teaching a lot longer than this. If we look back at the iconic episode Pigeon Man, when Arnold's carrier pigeon Chester is sick and he goes looking for help from the mysterious pigeon man who lives atop of a tall building in the neighborhood, and the two of course end up connecting on a friendly level over their love for birds, we see this happen.
I've seen you and your friends around the neighborhood, Arnold. The kids remind me of me when I was growing up over on 23rd Street.
You grew up around here?
I went to PS 118.
I go to 118.
Is Miss Slovak still there?
She's my teacher now.
I did a project on birds when I was in her class. I became fascinated by birds. Fascinated.
Now, granted, we have no idea how old the Pigeon Man is, but I'm willing to take a shot in the dark and say that based on the eye bags, 5 o'clock shadow, and his overall demeanor, he screams maybe about 30 to 35 years old to me. With that being said though, he's likely at minimum 10 years older than Olga. If we take into context here, considering that Miss Slovak has taught Helga's generation, Olga's generation, and Pigeon Man's generation, that would mean that she has a teaching career sprawling at least 22 years now. Likely more than that though, because we're working on loose timelines here, and she may have been teaching for a few years before she taught Pigeon Man's class. Now, it's worth noting here that there's a chance Miss Slovak has always been the way that she is, but the overall point here is that over so many decades, she may have come across some serious burnout which resulted in her treating these kids the way that she does nowadays. Another prime example of her being a less than stellar teacher comes in the episode Tutoring Torvald, which would actually be the first one where Miss Slovak has a speaking role. This episode would see her putting Torvald, the big bully in the class, who, much like Helga, seems to have a bit of a struggle in his home life, on the spot in front of everyone.
Torvald, what's 3 times 3?
33?
Torvald, you're 13 years old and you're still in 4th grade. Don't you want to be with your friends?
You mean in juvenile hall?
From here, Miss Slovak decides, to use her own words, that there's only one thing that she can do: assign him a study buddy. Then, as all of the other kids in class pray that they aren't chosen, Miss Slovak picks Arnold to be voluntold to do it. Now, I have just a few issues with this. First of all, when you as the teacher fail to reach a student, you shouldn't put it on another student to do it for you and hold them accountable. All of these students already have enough on their plate, and they don't really have room to do your job for you, Miss Slovak. But furthermore, really? All you can do is assign this kid a study buddy? Like, it doesn't take a huge stretch of the mind to realize that Torvald might be struggling a bit at home. She could take steps to reach out to his mother and try to touch base with her, but on that note, I definitely recognize that for teachers that might be a hard thing to do sometimes. Odds are some parents might be pretty unpleasant about getting that phone call or having that meeting and not really understand that as a teacher you're just trying to get a bit of help or maybe some context so you can approach the situation better. In this one, we end up learning that Torvald's mother is a single mom who loves him dearly, is so proud of him, and sees his C grade as the accomplishment that it is for him considering the situation. Due to being a single mom though, she works a ton, and as a result, Torvald is often left home alone and isn't exactly held accountable to study and prepare himself for his future. Ultimately though, we can admit that the situation with Torvald is not really an easy one to tackle as his teacher. There is no easy answer there. However, her simply opting to put Arnold in charge of the situation instead of taking action on her own is something I'm sure that we can all agree was not the right move to make. Now, I'm sure we're painting a pretty vivid picture together, but before we get into the further specifics as to why Miss Slovak was written out of the show, I want to give you guys one final tidbit of context as to just what kind of person she is, considering that would ultimately be what led to her getting the boot. The interesting part of this context, though, is the fact that it would come post her existence in the show. The decision had already been made that Miss Slovak was done as a character, and this was just kind of the final nail in the coffin that made things clear as to how she was viewed, not only by us as viewers, but also by the show's writers as well. This would actually come from the episode where her departure is announced, the Season 2 episode New Teacher. This one revolves around Mr. Simmons becoming the kids' new teacher, and if you've seen it before, you would recall that it was quite a tumultuous journey. His first days as their teacher was an absolute dumpster fire, completely fault of the kids. However, the point that we need to focus on comes at the exact beginning of the episode.
Now, class, I have a very important announcement. Your teacher, Miss Slovak, has left the teaching profession to pursue her dream to be a professional golfer. Hence, she'll no longer be your teacher.
Now, this scene gave us a few important pieces of information that we need to talk about. First of all, Miss Slovak just full-blown up and quit in the middle of the school year unexpectedly. It wasn't a dramatic exit. She didn't blow up and have a mental health crisis as far as we know. One day, she just decided that she was going to chase her dream of being a pro golfer, and just like that, she left without even saying goodbye to her class. This right here is just something that I find so weird at face value. I'm not sure about you guys, but most teachers that I've had over my 12 years in public school wouldn't be able to make a decision like that without making a huge announcement out of it. Throughout my years in school, I saw multiple teachers make big announcements to overwhelming support. One of my teachers ended up getting pregnant and announcing that she was leaving at a huge assembly, and everybody cheered for her. Another teacher ended up leaving behind teaching to become a pretty successful artist, and again, it was a really heartwarming moment, but at its core, the fact that these teachers felt the want to announce these things in such a big and bold kind of way are due to the sentimental attachment that these teachers had with the job or the love for their students. They wanted to take the time to share these glorious moments with their students that they've spent so much time building a relationship with. Miss Slovak, on the other hand, straight up ran away from the whole school without even batting an eye or saying a single goodbye. This, more than anything, shows us how much she really cared about her class, and more specifically, all of these kids who looked to her for guidance and were likely searching for a bonding moment with their teacher that they wouldn't ever really get. The other thing that this moment showed us, though, is the fact that these students clearly have negative feelings towards Miss Slovak, hence why they all cheered at the announcement that she's never coming back. I mean, from the moment in Spelling Bee that Miss Slovak basically snubbed Arnold to his face in front of everyone, it was pretty clear from the look on his face that he likely feels negative towards her. If he hadn't felt that way already, her actions in this moment likely made him feel negative towards her from that moment on, without a doubt. More or less, Miss Slovak just left without even saying goodbye, and her students responded with a cheerful good riddance. Now, again, we could chop this up to her just being an awful person who was never really meant to be a teacher in the first place, but it's definitely worth noting that her behavior here might be deeply rooted in her truly being burned out with life in general. By all means, that can come with time, and it's no secret that she isn't a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed young new age teacher like Mr. Simmons is. Now, with our understanding for Miss Slovak as a character well established, it's clear as day that she was written out of the show because she was just so unlikable. In general, she's kind of a boring character, and felt like she was very quickly written in a rather flat way just to fill the teacher role and not really anything further than that. Her character also felt really inconsistent in my opinion. There honestly were some episodes where she wasn't portrayed as all too negative, and these moments would clash highly with the times when she's being completely rude or in a rush to get out of there as quickly as she possibly can. Sometimes she seemed almost a little bubbly, and like she could have been like a wacky guidance kind of figure for her students. But these moments were usually not very long-lived, and it felt like as time went on, there was more of an emphasis made on portraying her negatively until the point where the writers were just like, okay, we're done with this character. In all reality though, as far as the show's creator Craig Bartlett is concerned, he has gone on record making a statement about the replacement of Miss Slovak with Mr. Simmons. He said she was too much of a caricature. That seemed a little bit too simple. It wasn't smart enough. What if we put instead a great teacher who really cares about the students and is just full of passion? Now this right here makes sense. I get it to a degree. When Craig Bartlett says that, what he means is that she was a blatant caricaturization of a burned out teacher who didn't want to be there. I totally see where he's coming from, because the common trope at the time was to have nearly every cartoon classroom being taught by some old grouchy teacher who didn't want to be there. Him wanting the show to stray away from that was them stepping away from doing the same exact thing that everyone else had been doing, and ultimately this would be a great thing for Hey Arnold as a show. As far as Miss Slovak is concerned, when she was used for a plot point, it was usually a general teacher role that was typical, not all too positive, and it didn't really stand out. It felt like one of those things we've seen a million times in a million different cartoons. However, them implementing a happy-go-lucky, positive, and in tune with his feelings kind of teacher really opened the door for them to approach stories that they couldn't really have had the basis to approach before. It also allowed them to eventually go down different storylines involving Mr. Simmons in roles that would have never worked for Miss Slovak. Like in the episode where there's a massive flood and Mr. Simmons basically ends up sacrificing himself for the kids. I couldn't in a million years imagine Miss Slovak doing anything like that. Or, for example, the episode where Principal Warts quits and Mr. Simmons steps up to the plate to become the new principal. That right there is certainly something we never would have seen Miss Slovak do. All things considered, the change to replace Miss Slovak would be a great one for the series in the long run. I feel like it's a change that directly resulted in this show being able to last as long as it did because of how many doors that it really opened. However, I do find it interesting the way that Craig Bartlett describes wanting to make that change. He specifically said that Miss Slovak was too much of a caricature. Now, that statement right there is something that I personally find hilarious because she was really just kind of your generalized depiction of a regular run-of-the-muck teacher. I mean, there were times where her crummy actions were hyperbolized without a doubt, but as a character, she wasn't really caricaturized much in my opinion. Now, Mr. Simmons, on the other hand, is an extreme caricature in comparison to Miss Slovak. He's a very hyperbolized representation of a new age, down-to-earth teacher who, in the late 90s and early 2000s, was breaking molds and trying a different, more gentle approach to handling children. Like, this man wakes up in the morning and pours himself a cup of sunshine and rainbows with his breakfast. In all reality though, Craig Bartlett's phrasing on this is kind of hilarious when you think about it, because he pretty much replaced one character that he said was too much of a caricature with someone else who was an even bigger caricature just on the opposite side of the spectrum. Whereas Miss Slovak is quick to put down one of her students rudely in favor of another, Mr. Simmons is equally quick to take time to build up every single one of his students individually. What it really boils down to is that Miss Slovak was written out of the show not only because, well, she sucked, but also because the introduction of Mr. Simmons was just too excellent of a plot device for them to pass up. Now, as we wind down towards the end of the video here, there's a few random things that I wanted to bring up as it relates to Miss Slovak. One thing that I found really interesting about her was the changing of her appearance over time. If we look at her in the first few episodes that she's featured in, she's portrayed as rather young looking with brown hair and no glasses. Then, a few episodes later, we see her seemingly aged up, now sporting a head of gray hair, as well as some forehead wrinkles and a pair of glasses that seem to really emphasize her older age. This right here, I feel like, was likely due to the fact that the show's writers realized that a young teacher wouldn't make sense for the lore that they were building. They ended up writing in that Miss Slovak also taught Helga's decade-older sister, as well as Pigeon Man, who's a few decades older than Arnold and Helga are. There's no way a teacher who looks that young had been teaching for that many decades. As a result, they would just kind of retcon a bit and rewrite history to make Miss Slovak a bitter old lady. I, for one though, like to add further context to things, of course, so I always imagined that her hair turned gray over time because of the stress of her being a teacher and having to put up with that many rambunctious children. Not to mention the stress of specifically being a teacher at PS 118. I mean, there was an entire episode called Teacher's Strike that was fully dedicated to Miss Slovak and the other teachers getting fed up with Principal Warts' budget cuts and finally going on strike. He was full-blown trying to demand that they ration chalk by only being allowed one stick per classroom and having to check their chalk out from the office at the beginning and end of the day so that its use could be monitored. Or the fact that he refused to buy more desks, so the kids in her class had to share desks as they sat in the classroom where the lights got turned off to save money. And, well, in exchange, they were expected to get natural light from the boarded up windows. All in all, being a teacher at PS 118 sounds stressful, and it's not surprising that she would turn gray over time. Another thing worth noting is that her being written out actually caused quite a bit of confusion for viewers due to the fact that after she left, we would see her appear again in the Season 2 episode Arnold Saves Sid. However, this one would be way after the episode where it's announced that she was leaving. Everyone who was watching was left wondering how she had come back after she straight up quit to become a pro golfer. Some people theorized that the pro golfer career didn't really work out for her, so she ended up becoming a substitute teacher, and the reason that she was there that day was because Mr. Simmons was sick. However, there's absolutely no proof to back up that theory. The real reason why this had happened, though, was because of deviations in the production order. Essentially, the episode Arnold Saves Sid was actually made to air before New Teacher. However, due to one issue or another, that ended up not being the case. Because of these slip-ups in production timelines, this would result in Miss Slovak being written out of the show, then seemingly coming back, possibly more than the one time that I had mentioned. Winding down, I fully recognize that there is a lot of negativity towards Miss Slovak in this video. So, in the spirit of ending things on a more positive note, I definitely want to take a moment to touch on the absolute greatest thing about Miss Slovak, and that would be her voice actress. You might not know this, but the voice behind this teacher is an extremely iconic one. This is none other than Tress MacNeille. Now, her career as a voice actress spans through a very illustrious catalog of roles. She's been in many very huge franchises such as The Land Before Time, Scooby-Doo, Futurama, The Flintstones, DuckTales, and honestly just way too many other huge productions to list. The most notable that you might recognize as one of my viewers, though, would be Charlotte Pickles from Rugrats, Hoodsy from As Told by Ginger, Grandma Pookie from Hey Arnold, and Dot Warner from the Animaniacs. Sure, Miss Slovak as a character isn't my favorite, but I have to give an endless amount of praise to her voice actress because Tress MacNeille is an absolute legend. And I definitely gotta say, it makes my heart happy knowing that even though Miss Slovak was written out of the show, she still got to be a part of the show, considering that she also played the role of Arnold's grandma. In closing, I'll say this much. The fact that Miss Slovak got written out of the show wasn't really surprising. Even as a kid, it just felt like a change that needed to happen because she was just such a boring character to me. What was really surprising though, if I'm being honest, was learning about how much people hated her. I never really thought about how awful she was, and to finally connect those dots in hindsight kind of changed the way that I look at the entire first season of Hey Arnold as a whole. But what do you guys think? What's your opinion on Miss Slovak? Also, do you think Mr. Simmons was the better teacher? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. Of course, massive shout out to my friends over on Patreon, especially those of you in the true 90s kids tier. The thing is, I've been tackling some really ambitious projects recently, and the funding that you guys have been able to offer me on Patreon has been incredibly helpful. I appreciate it more than words could ever say. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and give some praise to the algorithm in hopes that it pushes this one to everyone else. And as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.